Welcome back. After watching my last video where I talked about Super 8 and the auxiliary lens that I use for wide angle, I realized that it's actually kind of nice to have a little bit more in frame here. So I'm going to leave this on. The quality is not great, as you I'm sure can see if you look in this area and on the corners of the frame here. It gets really blurry and really fringy. So I don't know if I'll keep it, but for the time being, we'll see what we can do. So, for those who know me, for those who have followed me, film has been my go-to for almost a decade now. Really have not shot a lot of digital. I sold all of my digital equipment about 10 years ago to buy my Leica M6, which I've got right here. And since then I've bought a few digital cameras and owned them for brief periods of time. I had an X100F for a little while. I had a Sony Nex 6000 maybe. I honestly can't remember. It was a pretty short time that I had it for. I had a Sony A7 II. I had an X Pro 1 for a little while. And then I bought this camera, which I'm actually using to record right now, the Fuji X-T1. And the reason I bought it is because back in October, I saw the press releases about the X Pro 3 that were coming out, and I was like, man, that sounds like something that's kind of up my alley. It's got these great film presets to give me the right color and tonality. It's got this awesome LCD cover with an e-ink screen on the back. Like, that sounds like it's something that might be up my alley. But the problem is, it was like $2,300. I didn't really want to spend that, especially without really proving that I could integrate something like that into my workflow. So I went down to my local camera store, Pro Photo Supply, and I looked in their used department, and I said, that one, and I pointed at the X-T1 that I'm using to film this video right now. And the reason I bought it was because I was heading to Los Angeles for work in a couple of days. This was back in October, and realized, like, you know, if I'm going to try something like this, I should really actually try it. Like, where do I succeed? Where do I actually take photos? And more often than not, it's when I travel. And so this seemed like a good opportunity to throw a couple bucks at something to see if it would work. And I could always sell the X-T1 later if I decided I wanted to. But what ended up happening is I fell in love with the camera that I'm using and that I've still owned for all this time, and have no desire to buy the X Pro 3. I have no desire to buy the X-T3 or to even upgrade to the X-T2. The X-T1 does it all for me. And I made a few adjustments when I first got the camera. And that's what I want to talk about today. And those adjustments really help me feel more like I'm using a film camera and using equipment that I'm more accustomed to. And I was able to boil it down into 8 separate components. So let's go through them together and kind of see how you feel about it. The very first thing that I did when I got the camera home was cover up the logos. Because, I mean, come on. You can't have an old black film camera unless you put some gaffer's tape on it. I think that's just a pretty well-known rule. It's not a big deal for most people, but I did it. For me, when I look at the camera, it makes it feel a little bit more used, even though it was in pretty good shape when I bought it. It makes it feel a little bit more like it's mine because I did something to it. And it's something that I have kept on. The same tape that's on it now is the tape that I put on it 5 months ago when I first bought the camera. The second thing I did, I took off all of the little plastic covers and port protectors and things like that. For example, the PC Sync socket cover. Pulled that off. And the reason being is that normally when I have a film camera, I lose those things all the freaking time. Here's my Leica. Here's the Leica PC socket cover. The only reason I actually have this one is because, as I mentioned in my Leica M6 Decade in Review video, Leica gave me one for free. But if I didn't have that opportunity, I would have never replaced this because who cares? The other thing is the hot shoe cover on top of the X-T1. I pulled that off. I set it somewhere. You know what? I've probably lost it, to be honest. I have no idea where it is. So it's long gone, and I don't worry about it. It's not something that really matters to me. And again, it's another sign that it's like, yeah, I'm using this camera for what it was intended for, which was taking pictures. Third thing I did, I set the autofocus mode to single. This is kind of ridiculous, but from a workflow perspective for me, this is what really matters. Every time I press that shutter button, I want to make sure that I am focusing on exactly what I'm looking at. And another part of this is making sure that I set the focus to be dead center in the viewfinder. I know a lot of people will kind of do center weighted or adjust it or do smart focusing, but going back to how I work with my Leica, when you look through a Leica viewfinder, you're only focusing on exactly what's in the middle of the frame. I've been shooting with this for 10 years. That's what I'm used to, that's what I like, that's what I appreciate. And so when it came time to do it with the Fuji, I wanted the focus to be dead center. So single shot focus, put it right in the middle. You might be asking, why didn't I set it to manual focus to really get a more kind of authentic film feel? And the answer is that the Fuji, for all of its pros, doesn't have a tactile focus response, and it's an electronic focus drive, so when you turn that dial on the lens, you're not actually moving any elements within the lens itself. You're sending a signal to the camera, and the camera's moving a drive, and that drive is adjusting the focus. So there's some delay there, and it's just not super tactile for me. It's not something that I really appreciate. Number 4, let's talk about settings. So when I shoot my Leica, Leica has only really 2 variables on it at any given time. You can set the ISO, sure, but that's based on what film you've got in it, so you're stuck with it for 24 to 36 shots. So for me, I set the ISO on the Fuji to 400. You know, its low light performance is good enough, so I'm not really concerned about it going any higher than that, and it looks nice enough that I don't really need to go down to 100 either. And restrict my my settings. I think about like ISO for me. It's something that I don't want to think about, right? It's something that I just want to be able to use. Which brings me to number 5, usability on the lens. Same thing with the Leica. Generally, I don't want to be futzing around with dials on here. I don't want to be futzing around with dials on the Fuji. So for my aperture on the Leica, generally I'll set it to 5.6 or 8. Fuji gets set to the same. I'll put it to 5.6, I'll put it to 8, and I'll just leave it there for the entire day unless I really get to a point where I need to open it up a little bit more because I've restricted the ISO to 400. But the only variable I want in all of my images, and to make sure that they're as consistent as possible, is the shutter speed. And for me, I'm lazy. Like, I'll come out and say it. I don't want to be messing around and flipping that shutter speed dial back and forth. That's what I do with the Leica, is just moving this so that I can get the exposure correct. That's one thing that I really loved about my M7 when I owned it, is that it was auto exposure. So for the Fuji, I set the shutter speed to auto. Number 7, getting to some of the bigger stuff here. I put a thumbs up style grip on it, or a thumb grip that mounts to the shoe. This is a very common modification that a lot of Fuji owners will do. A lot of Sony owners will do it as well, because in my experience it makes the camera much more comfortable to hold, but it also makes it more familiar to hold. When I'm holding my Leica, and I keep going back to this camera because it's my most used, shutter's generally cocked, and that locks the film advance in place, and so it gives this nice thumb rest. And really, I barely have to put any pressure on the front of the camera to keep it from moving. I can really just rest it in my palm and use my thumb as a cantilever to hold it in place. And this thumbs up, or this thumb grip on the Fuji, does the exact same thing that having this guy here will do for you. It really makes it nice to hold. Lastly, number 8. I covered up the screen. I did it completely. And I did this by setting the viewfinder to be EVF only. I don't have it set to the eye sensor, I don't have it to anything. It only works with the EVF. When I want to change menu settings, I have to hold the camera up to my eye. When I want to preview a shot, I hold the camera up to my eye. If I want to review any images, I hold the camera up to my eye. And this is partially restrictive from a review perspective. When I'm shooting film, I don't get to view my shots until way later. Same thing here. I don't want to be reviewing my shots and wondering, did I really get it perfect? Did I do everything I wanted to do? Because if I'm spending time doing that, I'm not necessarily spending time taking photos. And so what I'll do is I'll force myself to have to use that viewfinder to really get in there. It's just such an awkward experience, and it's an intentionally awkward one that I want. And in order to reinforce that just a little bit more, I turn the display off completely. I don't use it whatsoever, and I cover it up. When I first got the camera, I used some tape plus this, which is a kind of leatherette. It's actually made for like couch repair. You can get it super cheap. I think 2 sheets like this on Amazon were $12 or something like that. And then actually what I did was I found some screen protectors later on. And all I did was take those screen protectors and cover them with the leather. And then I put the screen protector on the camera. So not only can I now absolutely certainly not view what's on the viewfinder, but it looks nice. It blends in with the rest of the camera, and it really makes it feel like a more cohesive experience and a more authentic experience. One where I'm not pretending and I'm not like trying to force myself to not look at the viewfinder, but knowing that I actually can. I'm stuck. I can't do it unless I want to rip that protector off. I don't have very many of these left, and my intention is not to use any more. In fact, if you have an XT1 and you would like one of these, leave a comment below. I'll send you one. We're all stuck here. We're all in quarantine to some degree. Let's share the love a little bit. All you need to do is leave a reason why you would like to try one out. Send a picture if I send you one of you using it, and that's all I would really ask for. So yeah, so it's a pretty quick video today. Hope you enjoyed watching. Probably sign off a little bit for the weekend. I won't post anything else until Monday, but hopefully I can at least get outside a little bit here. Thank you so much for watching. These videos mean a lot to me, and having people watch and being able to comment and talk and engage has really meant a lot to me as well. This is the first time I've actually put any editing effort into one of these videos too. Most of the time I just sit here and talk in front of the camera. I try and clip off the front end where I am awkwardly turning the camera on and off again. But here I put a little effort into it, and I hope it shows, and I hope that you care. So please be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment below if you have anything you want to talk about. And until next time, I'll see you around.